Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first and last word poetry series. And Harris and I are very happy to see all of you here. And we have three great writers tonight to share their work with us. And after the reading, there will be a short Q&A, and you can also make comments. And so our first reader is Susan Donnelly. She is the author of 4 poetry collections, most recently the Maureen Papers and Other Poems. Her chapbook, The Path of Thunder, was published by Cervena Barva Press. Her poems have appeared in The New Yorker, Poetry, Agni, and many other publications. Susan teaches poetry from her home in Arlington, Mass. And I give you Susan.
Thank you very much, Gloria, and thank you, Harris. And I'm delighted to be here reading again with Richard. I have in the past, and meeting Tim and hearing his work. Thinking about putting what I was basically putting together for this reading, I realize it has a lot to do with how we as poets approach the world as it is today. I mean, what can we say about some of the things that are happening? What do we presume to say about troubles and injustice and war that is happening to other people? And yet somehow we do end up talking about it. So my poems will have that kind of theme throughout. But I'm going to start with lighter themes in the sense of we also react to the various products in our lives and things that phrases that appeal to us or the like. So I'll start with that. The first is talking about a kind of mattress called memory foam. And, for any poet, that's an easy, thing to be interested in. So I'll begin with memory foam. Memory foam. I really don't want a mattress to remember quite as well as this one. I resist being drawn into the body's past, how I lay down last week, last night, or even an hour ago when I first tried to settle myself into sleep. Neither do I want to be tidally sucked close to another body, not from spontaneity or sentiment, but simply from some manufacturer's oxymoronic design. Memory, foam, one so enduring, the other evanescent. And then I keep hearing from people lately that everybody has sleep apnea, and they're all wearing these various devices when they go to bed and talking about them. So this is a prose poem, and it's going to be all said in one breath, like you would be if you had sleep apnea, I guess. So we'll just bear with me. It's a sort of stream of consciousness, the way people talk about these things. It's called apnea. I tell you, I would rather tape my mouth shut than have a Velcro kind of strap around my head, or one of those horseshoe things that keeps off the wind tunnel effect that my daughter told me the sound was like. So the only alternative is to go with a mask, but everybody I know who's tried them doesn't like them. Besides, I sleep on my side, and when I'm still awake, before I finally go off, I experiment, but no, I just don't want anything over my chin. Somebody tells me this guy on the internet knows about the airway pressure kind and can tell you how to read the graph that lets you see just how you're breathing, like if the pressure goes up or goes down and why. But I don't want some guy on the internet telling me what's going on or what I'm feeling. So it's hard because another friend who uses it says she gets up every morning and goes, I feel great. And who needs a friend like that? And now often when I open my phone, I not only get all kinds of headlines of things I don't really, not too interested in, but I get the word of the week, say, defined. And one recently I opened my phone and I saw the word was inculcate. And I thought, that's familiar to me, but I don't remember what it is exactly. It seems something like teaching. And then I learned that its definition was to instill by persistent instruction, from the Latin calc, heel, calcare, to tread. And I thought this sort of fits something I was thinking about. I was reading about that terrible shooting some months back and in Colorado Springs at the Club Q, where a man was going around shooting everybody who was there at a drag show. And one of the drag queens got up and went to try to subdue him with her stiletto heels. So I decided somehow these two things came together, the word inculcate and that. If a drag queen can come forward in her spangled stilettos mid gunshots and screams to stomp on the back of the Club Q killer, let me come forward, though suspicious before, in favor of drag queens, and let those high heels inculcate and pound me till I'm dragged, kicking and screaming, into a new gospel. But still the question remains, how should we write? How do we write about the pains of the world? So this poem is called Since Writing's What I Do. Since writing's what I do, I'm trying against conscience to write about those people in Ukraine scrambled from home with just a bag or two. What did they pack? How heavy even a 1-year-old would become carried for blocks. My back aching so after a night on one of those thin mattresses. The noisy, silly, frightened kids, I know I'd snap at them because I couldn't help it. Then watch the younger frown to himself, hands twitching in his obedient lap. The pangs I'd feel. You see, I've nothing but my fortunate self to speak. Yet, God forgive me, I keep trying to write. This horrible story was in the news, the local news recently. I'm sure you read of it. It took place in the suburban town of Duxbury, in which a crazed mother, crazed with postpartum insanity and too many drugs, killed her 3 children. She strangled them. And I just can't even, understand how anybody gets through that. They're not really meant to. I don't think we are meant to get through it, but somehow she's still in the world. Her husband's trying to love and understand, and it's just a terrible thing. So I found myself wanting to write about it. I called the poem Duxbury. Fearful, sleepless, trying to smile, each day a thing to stagger up into. Cheerful over the kids' breakfast, sends off text, chatty, hopeful, makes list, call Dr. X. Pills don't seem to be working. Life like a climbing wall, trying to smile, the kids closing in. Ring around Rosie, claps her hands sudden over her ears. Best for them, that voice again, never to endure this. Ceiling fan. 5 blades on the ceiling fan, yet always one you don't see, even when the blades are still. Staring upwards these past nights, I wonder what it is about the fan, or the light through the drawn shade, or my eyes, that keeps always one blade in shadow. I'm trying to know that my brother's child, a grown man but his child, is dead, that he's gone from us and not anywhere anymore. To his father, he must be everywhere, in every thought, every room. I lie here thinking, counting the fan. The next, no, excuse me, I'm in the introduction. This is another poem that I wanted to read. It's called Matthew Desmond's Evicted. I don't know how many of you read that wonderful book. Matthew Desmond has a new book out now called Poverty by America. And I highly recommend, I haven't read the new book, but I highly recommend this book called Evicted, which focuses just on the city of Milwaukee, various neighborhoods in it. It talks about that issue of losing your home, your house, very prevalent. Matthew Desmond's Evicted. Sometimes reading this book, I will cough or something, look up for a moment, gasp or something, look around at my framed photos, colors, cushions, books, the sun coming in, turn back to read of the two black boys on Milwaukee's north side, painting a room for their disabled father, so the landlord will give him a break on the rent. But she doesn't, of course. She scoffs at the job they did, paint spattered on the floor, serves him the papers. I look up at my room again at two boys their age, and I cough, gasp, or something. The next two poems are from my chapbook, The Path of Thunder, that Gloria published in Cervena Barva Press, which I'm very thankful. For Trayvon Martin. Is that boy in the hooded sweatshirt my grandson who has taken a wrong turn in a strange neighborhood and tries to find his way out through streets like a maze? Or has he, my grandson, loped in here just to see, like a kid in the woods? I hold him too tight when we meet, until I remember to let him go. But is it he who is startled from his thick and absorbing boy dreams by awareness that someone is following? He who is changed, all in sunshine, from himself to prey. Yes, it is he who cries out, my grandson, sweet rasp of new beard on his cheek, whom I would die to save. And this next poem is about Katrina, after the Hurricane Katrina. It's called The Roofs. They are painted with SOS. Please help us. No food, no water. Their shingles glint in the sun. Some have the stars and stripes tied to chimneys or laid out flat like a beach towel. People stand by the flags, waving their arms. Many roofs have gaping holes where families have hacked their way from attics with water up to their waists. Now each family waits, hunched together, holding shirts over the old people. These roofs cover houses that had to disappear before anyone saw them. When the water goes, we can forget them again. I'm moving into a little more sunshine, these last two or three poems. Legacy. Morning sun strikes a 1-inch stone on my desk, so its heart-shaped, mica-like fossil makes itself known like the flash of the modest, saved-up-for engagement ring my mother left me, which lights up the windowsill when I write this. And this poem is called A Morning Person. In it, I quote the famous haiku by Basho, which goes, though I'm in Kyoto, when the cuckoo sings, I long for Kyoto. So I quote that a little upside down in this poem. It's written in the third person, but it's about me. A morning person. It must be because she is one, most awake at the start of day, that so often now over coffee, she will set the cup down to wipe her eyes at a line in a memoir maybe, or a poem read for the 100th time, when the cuckoo sings, I long for Kyoto. A photo may cause it of a child whom everyone will remember forever, or a survivor somewhere standing on rubble. Yet breakfast tears are not always sadness. Often the words she reads are so full of joy, she looks up from the book to think beyond them, past the outside scene, where a squirrel cavorts, where a neighbor has just stepped onto a porch. Though I'm in Kyoto. And finally, on waking to irrational happiness. It seems that sleep, sun, and just planning what I'll put on, the work I'll sit down to by, let's say, 9:30. The way coffee will warm the rooms, and I'll hear the child upstairs chattering down the walk on his way to school. A kind of temporary mercy, worked out overnight, despite the press of facts, despite myself, lets me get up happy. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Susan. And can we have another warm round of applause for Susan Donnelly?
Thank you, Susan. Wonderful.
So our next featured reader today is Tim Gager. He's a #1 best-selling author on Amazon. He's published 18 books of fiction and poetry, which includes his latest novel, Joe the Salamander, in 2023. Big Table Publishing published an anthology of 20 years of his selected work with 150 pages of new material, the best of Timothy Gager. And I give you Timothy.
Hi, everybody. Susan, it's great to hear your work. And Harris and Gloria, thank you for having me. And I can't wait to hear Richard, as always. And I'm going to read for a little bit from Best of Timothy Gager. And I'm very honored that Robin Stratton picked out some work of mine from the past 20 years. But this is some newer poems from this book. Beach Rose. A deciduous wooden shrub, dense and multi-stemmed, grow to a height of 5 feet. You are beautiful in my sightline. Your shoulders held the sand dunes, an indicator, a metaphor, a display how native and non-native species struggle in changing conditions. How noble your petite fruit called hips, the leaves like my fading, wrinkling skin. Your curls held the sweet-smelling flowers, white, pink, or purple, with yellow stamens. My dear Rosa Rugosa, you picked me from spiny thorns. You will leave me deserted when summer ends, finding my own way back from the path. Reversing the rain. When reversing the rain, the sky is closing, the desert soaking, empty hearts lie in cavities, some assembly required, the lengthy daylight, the taking of theirs, the losing of yours. We collected lost postage stamps, knowing nothing of Costa Rica, nothing of New Guinea. No expert on geography, we're experts on the oceanic, how the fish empty the ocean, the whales washed away to sea. Serenity splashing, rolling over anger left on the shore, then tossed into the crests. Serenity, the tossed boat, trying to dock like a wounded whale needing a rescue. Window at the Oceanic Hotel, and this is an old hotel on this place called Star Island, and everyone takes a photograph of this open window and the drapes blowing from the ocean breeze. The beauty of the ocean caught behind the windblown diaphanous curtain is not missed by optic nerves or imaging sensor chips. It's the image for all in many pictures, this one captured with exponential universality, silent as we walk up the wooden steps. The suicide anniversary, years and a day late. I don't know where his family is now. Parents, a sister, his brother, Stephen and Dave, that's his name, live somewhere here in Massachusetts. I can't remember the town, like many old memories, good or bad, shuffled in my head. Happy anniversary, I cried. Yesterday was just a Wednesday. Yesterday, a day where I could feel the knife jousting his wrist the way it did as a stab scotch within my thoughts. 30 years later, the cut deep to the wrist bleeds out angrily. Still, I no longer really remember the exact time. Was it 31 years or 29? I can't calculate. I've forgotten how. I've forgotten a lot, not just that. Dinner party. The kitchen's hoard sits or stands, configured as serpentine shapes, stove sending warmth seen as steam willows, while the hostess offers her stirring spoon to strange lips, mixing the hollowed hellos with all the ones forbidden to each. One waiting to present the creation folded in as a fabric, the downing of drinks welcomed revelry, the bar ever so close, the countertop, the clientele askewed on stools, conclusive consensus quoted in chorus. The kitchen is where folks congregate. Good as the hullabaloo caused the holdup in dinner, where her lucky dog nuzzles, noses in, nothing but contentment, therapeutically weaving within a colliding kaleidoscope of limbs, like a figure skater gliding forth in beguiling figures of 8. Seasonal fire effect, thoughts on the bootleg fire. The sky black, the timber of cinder of ash in time. To scientists, listen, new atmospheric fears of 1 billion degrees of heat. Or don't, it's optional. Fiction is daft fact. Facts are feelings, you tweet. Disregard others as Greta is a shrill pill. Only pills are not a hobby, like a boyfriend in winter. Inside the forgetful flogging fire log, crumble as frozen spikes form, snap and give up. Don't overlook nor remember embers wild to remember long warnings, effacing a thought. What Dante learned from Dante's Inferno. One sin is enough of a mistake you cannot try to make. Again, you are charred by the torture within yourself, that special place in hell, dark, dismal, demented. The world as an illusion means nothing. Something cannot be something else. Spare ye such pain a la Beatrice, who arrived too late, such a non-lesson. St. Lucia seemed to prompt her along, and the Simonists you scold will learn or burn. The takeaway, you're exactly where you're supposed to be, Lucifer. Your insurgents squashed by the many scholarly souls. Introduction to a Seance at Turning Tables. Delphine de Dujardin for Victor Hugo. The peak is my catacomb. I am lungs full of spirit. God, the air we inhale. Chests rise and drop off, wanting to be in Earth's ether. But the dirt asks me back. I am pulled to where there were collisions with the Sagittarius dwarf, casket spikes latching on and cut, the dark tugs toward hell, the lights to rapture, melancholy the possibility, watching countless graves peer into the skulls after decomposition. I am now the initiator of nightmare. It's gone real dark tonight, eh? Yeah, really dark. No, this one's not really dark. There was once a harvest. Red pickup sat in the track of dried mud, in desolation as death left you alone, rust around the body and bed, tired dirt sprayed on its rubber, parked near a barn once glossed in a thick Corona blue, distressed, peeling the color, fights a battle with the barn board. A yellow piece of fabric blows through the hacked out yard. The man with the cinched cut hair pinches his gaze for miles, around miles in always directions. The sun-singed corn stands at attention, straight and stiff, its kernels burned and drying, husks wave slightly, offering him nothing. Next, what is the next one, should I say? It's down a ways. I have them all marked. Here we go. This is kleptoparasitic. Going to heaven, tears held back, snared in hell, like a fly in the strip, stuck, a glue tap restriction, morphine like soaring into the Prozac or skipping Prozac. The limbo of an insect's life is a human antonym, perhaps a hymn of yang and yin, stuck within magistry of dewdrops, web affixed, holding a place on earth. Unlike the pterodactyl, we beg to hold the dying. Here's my favorite. It's a found poem from somebody's speech. Guesses from a stable genius. Supposing we hit the body with a very powerful light, ultraviolet that hasn't been checked. Supposing you brought the light through the skin in some way, you're going to test it inside the body. Supposing there's a disinfectant that knocks it out in 1 minute, something by injection, almost a cleaning. Supposing you see it get there, doing a number on the lungs. It'll be interesting to check the way it goes after 1 minute. Supposing that's pretty powerful, the whole concept of light. Hopefully rest in peace, 45. Unformed relief. I took 3 pills. They were antibiotics. I saw my mother stare out vacantly from a hospital bed looking for St. Peter. I overeat. I undereat. I never eat. Any more suggestions? Treat yourself to self-care. Do something nice. Call your father, who won't remember losing his car keys. He doesn't remember looking for them for 2 days. We took them, hid them. Did we save a life? Ride the haze of Mercury? Know where to go? We know where to go. Do you know where to go? Tell me where to go. This is a poem I wrote for a North Shore writer, Nadine Darlin, who passed in 2019. Reply to someone who said you should write a poem about her. I don't know if I can write this poem. The one about you, the one about I don't know. Am I deserving of writing something that's not right? I know others can, if others can. I can pray, please God, someone write it. Someone, God, worthy or good enough, but not me. No, I can't. It's impossible. You are gone, and it's impossible. I've got about 3 minutes left. I'm going to read some brand new ones making their debut. Psychiatric color. Two-sided conclusion, exhilarating experiments keep you up all night, burning, approving the science of fire. Questions answered about color depend on temperature. Chemical reactions take the credit for ignition of oxygen and fuel. Atoms rearrange themselves forever. Combustion will continue. Fuel, heat, and oxygen, resulting in hues. Ever see a blue flame of high oxygen, carbon, hydrogen produce blue and violet flames? The hottest. Red is cool. Lighter, scorching temperature. Fierce orange due to sodium, lithium turned into red. O is defeated by white flame, which we cannot forget. White flames lead to suffering. Nine lives. Cats really don't have them. Just one single house fire disproves that, or some cat virus no one will recognize. Can a cat survive a sadistic son of bitch who tortures ferals on YouTube? Show us the fun cats, cute cats falling into fish tanks. A lot of lives lost watching a cold stream. Yet the proverb, 3 he plays, 3 he strays, the last 3 he stays equals 9. And so, beloved, in Egypt, goddess Bastet was depicted as half feline, which is an absolute ball of fur and gives 4.5 lives. Even Mercurio Nutibalt only had 1. Still, as cats' agility and flexibility raises their reputation for reincarnation, the truth is they never die more than once, unless kittens on the internet are reborn as 200-year-old souls. Will the Greek Trinity of Trinities be honored in time for Fluffy's ritual morning leap from the floor to the top of the counter? I think I'll do one more. Dog years. The dog now takes more pills than my father and swims more than I do. Every day on this earth, she ages a week, a year, and about 7 of those. My father's head is in the clouds eternally. At least the dog in her 90s can still find a tree to pee on. There are no rings of a bell which sing without the rings of the tree's cross-section of time. Good timing on that. The time never dissipating. When night darkens the dog, my father can no longer see. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Timothy. Let's have another round of applause for Timothy Gager. Okay, thank you, Charles. All right, so our next feature, Richard Hoffman has published 5 books of poetry, Without Paradise, Gold Star Road, Emblem, Noon Until Night, and People Once Real. His other books include the memoirs, Half the House, and Love and Fury, and the short story collection, Interference and Other Stories. I give you Richard Hoffman.
Hello. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to say that it's a pleasure and an honor to read with both Susan and Timothy. Susan, I thought those were remarkable poems of engagement, and something I'll probably speak to a little bit more as I move through this part of the reading. And Tim, it's wonderful to see that body of work being celebrated in that way. It's very special. It's great to hear it. I always begin my readings with a poem by another poet. And I'm going to read tonight a poem by my friend Mossab Abu Toha, Palestinian poet from Gaza. And this is a poem that appeared 2 weeks ago in the New York Review of Books. It's called What a Gazan Should Do During an Israeli Airstrike. Turn off the lights in every room. Sit in the inner hallway of the house, away from the windows. Stay away from the stove. Stop thinking about making black tea. Have a bottle of water nearby, big enough to cool down children's fear. Get a child's kindergarten backpack and stuff tiny toys and whatever amount of money there is, and the ID cards and photos of late grandparents, aunts, or uncles, and the grandparents' wedding invitation that's been kept for a long time. And if you are a farmer, you should put some strawberry seeds in one pocket and some soil from the balcony flower pot in the other, and hold on tight to whatever number there was on the cake from the last birthday. I had a couple of different set lists for this reading, but here's the world we're in. A week ago, Mossab read at the Massachusetts Poetry Festival here in Salem and was my house guest for 3 days. I knew him from Cambridge, and he was planning to leave to go home from here to Gaza to his wife and 3 kids, 7, 5, and 2, whom he hadn't seen in 8 months. He was finishing up a degree. And he got as far as Cairo, and then the borders were closed. In other words, the lid was put on Gaza while the Israeli bombardment proceeded for 5 days in his village. So I just finally heard from him this morning. I was pretty much crazy with worry. And he is all right. His children were terrified by this 5 days of the ground shaking and buildings coming down around them and huddling in the basement. And it's not the first time. So I make no apology for the reading I'm about to give, because I feel as if we are not apart from people suffering in places like Gaza or Ukraine or other places where militarism and empire have unleashed their violence on populations, particularly children. And so what I'm going to do, rather than try to give you an example, give you a flavor for this book, which contains love poems and elegies and many other kinds of poems, I'm going to read the final section of the book, which is a sequence called Mundus et Infans, the world and the child. It begins with a quotation from William Blake. The angel that presided o'er my birth said, little creature formed of joy and mirth, go, love without the help of anything on earth. 1. After the war. Waves went on rolling across leagues of water. Clouds hit high pressure zones and piled up into new beauties. A woman who lived alone cracked an egg on the rim of a pan. A zygote, many zygotes, became attached precariously to nourishing uterine walls. A petulant dictator on the rise professed his admiration for a spurious book deemed holy to those he planned to kill. In regions newly designated countries by people in countries elsewhere, resentments seethed. A dozen academic papers sifted evidence for calling a set of symptoms a new disease. In the meantime, and long before I knew myself at all, my life had begun among ghosts who begged to be mourned or demanded answers, especially the ones who didn't know they had been murdered. Wrong name, faith, country. I lay there, a little red fist, and wailed, but no one saw that they surrounded me, asking for pity or vengeance, or begging forgiveness for crimes against me, maledictions like unexploded ordnance in the neighborhood. People once real, who'd loved their lives and one another, who might not have meant to harm but only warn me. In what first tongue did I compose those poems that calmed them, that bid them be silent so I could sleep? I need that language now. They have returned. They circle, insistent, whispering, same war, same war, same war. Two, art a great investment, says Forbes. For sale at auction, wooden santos from Mexico, hand-painted in colorful uniforms, rough-hewn, nearly identical figurines, swords drawn, holding children's bloody heads, arms, legs, arranged in the Sotheby's brochure around a screaming mother. The Massacre of the Innocents, artist unknown. A recurrent theme in Western art, Rubens, Bruegel, Poisson, Ghirlandaio. Amid the charred ribs of a school bus in Yemen, a fragment of fuselage, commercial and government entity code, CAGE, like a return address, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Burlington, Massachusetts, Falls Church, Virginia. Engineering a better tomorrow. And in the bramble, a ram entangled. Oh, angel of outrage, where are you? For arms, say aerospace. For surveillance, information systems. For bombers, say defense. For taxes, say earnings. Say second quarter on track, say 62 billion US dollars. A voice was heard in Ramah, Rachel weeping for her children. A Saudi apologist claimed the Yemeni school was teaching insurrection. King Herod's fear, precisely Herod's fear. In Bruegel's version, blood on the village snow. In Ghirlandaio's, blood on the plaza's stones. Imperial architecture in the background. In Poisson's, a sandaled soldier, his foot on a baby's neck, dispassionately sights down the blade. In the Rubens, it is hard to separate the mothers from their babies. The scene is one great mass of writhing flesh. At the border, the official explained, it is hard to separate the mothers from Mexico, from their babies. Confía en mí, por favor, señor. Déjame llevarla y traerle algo de comer. They are enclosures, the official said. We're uncomfortable with the term cage. They are temporary structures made of chain link. A voice was heard in Ramah, Rachel weeping for her children. To comfort them, to warm them, to console them, they have each been given a blanket made of foil. At auction, the Rubens sold for $75 million. And in the bramble, a ram entangled. Oh, angel of outrage, where are you? Rubens, Bruegel, Poisson, Ghirlandaio, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, General Electric, Herod, Franco, Trump, Mohammed bin Salman. Historians are skeptical the massacre took place. Flavius Josephus does not mention it. The Orthodox Church has for millennia held that Herod, as punishment, was eaten alive by worms. 3. Sentinel. I show him, now 3, his birth photo. Asleep, fist under his chin. No, he says, not me, not. Four, hold that pose. In old-time billowing shirt sleeves, baggy woolen pants, and ankle-high black cap toes. Grandfather-like, Edison, a picture of Edison, as if he has just heard news from the prophet's obviating hope of happiness of any ever again. But no, his frown, his anger, his clean-shaven cathode stare is for his adversaries. Who owns the light? A button, a toggle, a dimmer, control and guidance systems, a satellite, its solar panels, wings, a painting, hyper-realist above Earth's marbled blue curve. Figures a lovely emptiness of grace. artist's rendering in fine print, bottom right. Better, much better than a charred orb, sulfured yellow as a smoker's fingers. 5. Mundus et infans. From what region in the imagination of celibate churchmen do they come, these cherubs, wrists and ankles creased? They are so plump and much too heavy for their tiny wings. Ideas, not children, that have never matured. Impossible, equating helplessness with innocence, wordless amnesia with paradise. So I call bullshit on Paul. When I was a child, I spake as a child, in pain, and asked my questions clearly, in a sweeter voice, perhaps, but not less serious than now, when clarity remains at least as hard and honesty much harder. I still play dead to keep in practice, since you never know. This 6th section is called Tribute, and it's dedicated to Patrick McSorley, who was among the earliest and most powerful voices to speak out against the widespread sexual assault on children by Catholic priests. He was assaulted as a 12-year-old boy by the notorious Reverend John Gager, who had hundreds of victims. And after a long struggle with addiction, which was likely a consequence of that abuse, he died at the age of 29. Tribute. This man once, he went down. This time none, not one man, not one pill, not one hope could stop him. Not one cry. Not one hand could reach him. Not one lie could save him. He went down. This man lived where men fear what they know and knew what he knew and spoke the truth. Not one bond could turn him. Not one friend could soothe him. He went down. We mourn him. Seven, progress. Iphigenia, Isaac, kids, bugs on the windshield ever since. Story, explanation, lowdown, narrative, narration, citation, recital, report, take, version, rundown, score, apologue, allegory, metaphor, myth, parable, fable, discourse, propaganda, treatise, testament, epic, justification, rationale, excuse. We're sorry, something went wrong. Please try your query again. Fish gotta swim, birds gotta fly, boats gotta sail. Fish, birds, boats, kids, swim, fly, sail, die at the direction of frowning, serious, disciplined men who grew up with me in America on their bikes, on roller skates, under the horse chestnut trees, trading baseball cards they bought with money from their paper routes. The nightmare true now, nightmare of my Cold War boyhood, true to children elsewhere. And in the bramble, a ram entangled. Oh, angel of outrage, where are you? Because everybody needs a job. We are one great mass of writhing flesh. Because fear begets profits, and profits more nifty gadgets. First best gizmo off the line is always an idea, an assumption, a mysterious immaterial twin to every sleek weapon thereafter, a prayer to consecrate the idol. Years of this, generations. Hey, I'm just trying to make a buck. Oh, shake us, make our hearts hammer shame in the face. Now blood drips from public monuments like icicles in spring. We no longer know how to know what we know. Error 404, not found. 8. In the meantime, between the launch and the blast, we drank to our prosperity. The boys are off to prison or to war. The girls carve crosses in their thighs. Sirens, blue lights, shots fired. Even enough is not enough. The server's down. The safety's off. History's a hoarder's burning house. Isaac's dream. Who's there? Who's there? It's dark. I'm afraid. Can't see. No one, only an old nightmare. Now I'm falling into nowhere while a body looms above me. Who is it? Who's there? Who's pulling my hair, muttering so angrily? No one, only an old nightmare. A hand on my throat. Air! I garble a choked plea. Who's there? Who's there? I hear moaning somewhere. Cry out and wake abruptly. No one, only an old nightmare. Slowly I see the dream was in fact a memory. And I know who was there. My father, my old nightmare. I'm coming around the bend here, the end of the sequence. This is 10. A dainty dish. Sing a song of violence, its pockets full of lies. 24 children sent sailing off to die. When the boat was sinking, the sharks began to sing. Can we even let ourselves imagine their suffering? Keeper of the lighthouse was counting out his money. Politicians took to TV, said the usual baloney. The maid was in the garden, enraged by what she knows. Along came justice, smirking, thumbing its nose. This section ventriloquizes a child soldier that I heard giving testimony on an NPR program. It's called 11 Enfants Soldats. I used to be always shaking. Some boys cried, but I was a shaking one. The day of the trucks, I wanted to run, but I was shaking and shaking. If I run, 2 boys who did was in the middle of the circle. Never can I ever not be thinking of this now. On the ground, boots on their backs, they are scared on their faces. And the boy who is beside me, they give him the gun. He was little, one of those crying kind. Shoot them boys on the ground dead. Shoot him and him dead, they say, him and him. The crying boy, he could not do it. Never can I ever not be thinking of this now. So the man, he was who drove the truck. Take back the gun and shoot him in his face. Then he is right away dead, quiet. All around the circle then the man is walking, looking in our faces, and I cannot stop shaking. When he make another boy the one, make him to hold the gun, that boy step to the boys on the ground and shoot their heads. We all climb in the trucks then, and that is how they took us to Mushasi camp for training. 12, seer. In Euripides' dour version, Artemis, to whom men pray for permission to kill wild creatures of her forests, spirits Iphigenia away to Taurus, where she makes prophecy of the single thing she knows, denied by all who seek her. Children will be sacrificed for advantage, for victory. What she knows is always so. It's almost too easy, almost. Hardest are the armored men who clatter up her stairs. She knows the harm they will do, and that no words will stop them. And this is the coda to the series. Uvalde, Texas, 5/24/2022. Another. No, not another, not that cushion of a word. Yesterday, with my granddaughter, 3, we lay on our bellies on the warm pavement, watching ants. Look, that one's carrying something. That his dead brother, he bringing him home. Thanks for listening.